Alright, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back to break some more thrones, and last time we were venturing through this part of Edirn that is currently completely inflamed, but also, we found this chest that currently is locked and we don't really have a key for it, so despite us knowing that this chest exists, we do not yet have a way to get it, so I suppose we'll carry on. In that case, I hope that we will find it soon, and that we've not yet passed the place where it is. I think we've been pretty thorough in our exploration thus far, so I hope that we have not already passed it. And speaking of what's coming up next, I mean, we are awfully close to this main quest marker here. I have to imagine that we are about to do whatever it is that comes here when we reach Rosberg, which is the primary place where I think we're trying to reconvene with the leaders of Edirn. So we'll see how that goes, but alright, let's do it. Anything over here before we do make it for that spot right there? That looks like that is the location in question. Oh, what is this? Translated from Nilfgaardian. Gwitfrin, these charlatans are about to begin the amputation. Is that a metaphorical or literal amputation? They say I have a chance to pull through. I think it's an actual amputation. But as with such things, nothing is for certain. Especially as I awoke this morn to discover gangrene had set in. Hence the reason I write to you now. If you are reading this, it means I did not survive. Yikes. First and foremost, raise a glass in my honor. Then, make for the trebuchets on the other side of camp. Between them, you'll find some trinkets from Rosberg. I'd planned to return for them myself, but it seems the great sun's grace no longer shines upon me. May you emerge from this war in one piece. Giggit. Don't think we've ever heard that name before. But, I believe that may have been a key right there, and perhaps may have even been referring to this chest that we had seen that was locked. Or I suppose these are trebuchets right here, yeah? Maybe. And is that... I mean, we can see to the left that looks like a locked symbol, and we saw it before, but... Now it has a key over to the right of it, which I suppose, yes, does in fact mean we can unlock it. As for what is inside, alright. Well, it is the premium version of the Gascon card, or at least, hold on, Gascon Plus. Congratulations, you've discovered a card that can be used in the Gwent multiplayer card game. Yes. Okay, does it always say plus at the end? I was gonna say, for a second that made me think that it was a new and improved version of the Gascon card in Thronebreaker that we already had, not just something that goes into the Gwent multiplayer game, but perhaps it is certainly multiplayer, but perhaps both. Alright, so before we head over here, let's just take a quick look. Can we remind ourselves as to what the main thing here is? Oh, well, I mean, then again, are we really gonna be able to fish through to figure out which one of these is supposed to be the main quest-related note or what have you? I mean, as we were saying, Rosberg is, I don't know if it's technically the capital of Edirn, but it is, I believe, the place where we were planning on meeting up with the king. So that is the big plan, and of course see if we can do anything to shut down this Nilfgaard attack.
What happened here?
Oh, and I'm pretty sure Rayla was talking about how those walls are impenetrable.
Met with surprise. 100-yard gap gaped in the unbreachable walls of Rosberg. The fortress itself was aflame, spewing black smoke into the sky.
I don't... How? It can't be!
There was no time to consider her question, for Nilfgaardian scouts had spotted Meve's company. The Queen knew battle was inevitable, so she gave the signal to form a defensive line, then drew her blade.
Alright, well, I mean, we did, of course, as we were just saying, we saw those trebuchets nearby, so I suppose that could at least paint part of the picture as to how they did, in fact, break through. But here we go. Okay, so the Battle of Rosberg. At Rosberg, Meve realized Nilfgaard had not started this war simply to draw more favorable political boundaries, nor to shift the continent's balance of power, but to burn the north to the ground and build a new Nilfgaardian-dominated world atop the ashes. Thus, the Lyrians were not fighting for honor nor spoils, but for survival. Okay, so it's a story battle. Special rules, shortened battle. Okay, so just one round. I believe we will still be using our own deck. so that is worth noting. And let's see, our hint is prevent the scouts from calling reinforcements. Okay, try to take mental note of that. Let's start the battle. Okay, so yeah, it's round 3. It'll be just one battle, or rather, just one round. So we just need to outscore our opponent for this round, but those scouts could complicate matters. Let's see if we can figure anything out before we start picking our cards here. So there are spotters, which maybe those are the scouts in question. Let's see. So after 4 turns, on turn start, summon reserve units. Deathwish increase their timer by 2. We learn about reserve units. These are reserves. Okay, wait, hold on. Every turn on turn start, reduce timer by 1. When timer expires, draw cards until your hand is full? What? That's so many more cards. That's incredibly powerful. I mean, yes, it does seem like this is very much based on them getting reinforcements. So, I mean, we gotta go with a whole lot of damage here. I think our leader ability will be very good, dealing 4 damage to cards that have the same amount of power. And then if we combine that with a Stray Slinger, moving 3 cards, dealing 2 damage to all those cards in the process, in theory, we can destroy all these spotters in one turn. That is, at least if we go first, before our opponent gets a chance to do anything. Actually, does our opponent have a leader ability? Every 4 turns on turn start, draw a card if you are losing. Excuse me? Excuse me? All this stuff about them getting card advantage. So I like the Stray Slingers, because as we were saying, at least one of them feels like that is a necessary piece to immediately get rid of some of their key cards. Stray's Cavalry, I mean, they don't have any big targets for us to put a mark on, so at least at the moment, we don't really know if that's going to be all that effective. I am a fan of setting the rows on fire, so I do like that. Also, don't know to what extent Stray's Infiltrator is going to be effective, because, I mean, it's all based on how big their units are. I mean, I do like the Stray Slingers, yes, but I wonder if we need this many of them. This is quite a lot. I don't know, I think I generally do prefer damage over boosting, though. Alright, Gascon is, of course, very good, so we'll definitely keep him. And, of course, this is just a one-round match, so, you know, we can use all of our redraws here. I think we do get rid of one more Slinger. I'd rather not go Scytheman, though. I know we were theorizing some creative uses for the Alchemist recently. I still feel like it's an awfully big risk. So you just never know. It's either going to be, it could be great, but there's a chance that it is almost useless as well. Okay, but I love Stray's Bomber, because having 2 of those means we can set both rows on fire. I think that could be very big. So let's go with this.
Your Grace, no Guardian fighters remain in the city.
Okay, so we do go first. That's great, because we can use our leader ability to damage every unit that has the same amount of power by 4. So we will definitely target the spotters in that case. I think we do that. And then we use, where'd you go? A Slinger. To destroy all those guys. It'll boost up Gascon. Okay, and it increased the timer for this right here, the reserves. Okay, so now it's 10 turns, which they only have 6 cards in their hand, so, but if they're losing, they'll draw a card, so, you know, is this a long enough duration that they will never actually get those reserves or those reinforcements? We'll see.
Of course, as you wish, master.
Okay, Vicavaro Novice. Spawn a random potion into your hand. Spawning into your hand? Excuse me? That is, this is not a thing in multiplayer. You can only spawn on the actual board, not anything in your hand, so it's functionally giving you an additional card. That is pretty darn powerful. Pretty darn powerful. So, let's see. Now, I think we just set the rows on fire as quickly as possible. Maximize the damage from that, and then once they play something big, that's when we'll want to start throwing out the cavalry, because I just don't think this Vicavaro Novice is going to last long enough for it to be all that relevant. I mean, it is still enough to, or once it does destroy this Novice, it'll transfer over the mark to someone else and deal damage to that. So, you know, it's not a bad idea to do it first, but I still think the Bomber is a little bit higher damage long term.
Your
to the front yet again.
Okay, these are the guys that strengthen all copies.
They'll
Cool.
pay for this.
Okay. Strengthen all copies of this unit in hand, deck, and on the battlefield by 2. Okay. And it's already done that. That's on deploy. So... Alright, I think we just set the other row on fire now. Then we'll probably go with the cavalry after that. Where'd you go? The other bomber? There you are.
Catch!
Yeah, I'm expecting a whole lot of these foot soldiers. One downside to the fire is it is a little bit unpredictable with the damage, which means it can be hard for trying to line up a future leader ability play to damage as many units as possible. I mean, of course, these normally, barring the fire, would always be on the same power. Would be very useful to set up a big leader ability, but maybe what we do in that case is we go with the cavalry here, and we mark you. Obviously, you have armor, so at least initially, it's not going to do much, but we're hoping to line up the power on these guys a little bit more. And I say that, and we have an 11, a 10, a 9, so we are doing exactly the opposite of that. But like I said, you know, some of it is completely unknowable, because it is random. But let's use another cavalry here. We'll mark you, and we'll see if we can line more of them up.
Off to the front yet again.
It's just all the foot soldiers.
I refuse to believe it. The king could not have died here.
And that's also a very relevant question. You know, obviously, the fortress has been breached. Does that mean that everyone who was here is now dead or captured? I think we're gonna have to see. I don't know for certain. I had not really thought that one that far out, but I suppose it is possible. We do have our leader ability back now, which means we at least have a couple of these foot soldiers on the same amount of power. So I think we just hit the 11s in that case. And we could put the infiltrator next to this Dareland foot soldiers would be the biggest. I mean, technically we're going to be burning our own unit, which is a little unfortunate. But, I mean, other than that, it could be a slinger to move and get damage there. I mean, we'd like to be... Well, hold on. How long does this take? 2 turns. I think we'd like to wait as long as possible, because assuming that some of their other cards here are additional foot soldiers, then that would mean they may be able to make one of these, or continue to make these bigger, which means we can continue to make the Stray's infiltrator bigger. We know one of them is a potion that they've not yet played, and we haven't really seen too many of those, or at least the ones we have seen, I don't remember exactly what their effects have been. But I think what we go for now is maybe we do go with the slinger in that case, and we'll specifically target the weaker of the units. We're going to try to keep this one as the big one. This will be our target for the infiltrator, barring a bigger unit coming out here. But it is another one of those foot soldiers. So as expected, that does mean we have a better target now to do this. So, I mean, the longer we wait, the better it is, but we do need to make sure we still have time to actually play it. And we would prefer to not use Lyria and Horn on it, because then we would be damaging our own unit. Or at least we want it to be back on our side when we use Lyria and Horn. So I think that means we may want to play this now. So let's see. Just make sure we play it on the right side. So boost self by the power of the unit on the right. So that means we want to play you to the left of their biggest unit.
Got a job to do.
And theoretically speaking, there is a non-zero chance that we accidentally completely destroy our own unit. I would rather that not happen. It may happen. It may happen. They boosted our unit? I mean, thanks. It's not going to get destroyed now. Does it get boosted? It does get boosted by the amount... Excuse me? Was there any reason for them to have done that? Or did they just very clearly help us, and that was, you know, all there was to it? I think that's odd. Very odd. Okay, so let's see. We don't yet want to use Lyrian Horn, because again, we want to wait until we get the Infiltrator back. And, I mean, we could play Gascon now. He does get boosted whether he's in our hand or on the battlefield, doesn't matter, so I suppose that means we can play him now.
Coin never stinks, no matter how rank the pouch.
Now we'll get the Infiltrator back, and yeah, it gets boosted all the way up to 26 now. We've taken a pretty big lead here. And of course, our opponent has already passed. That means we have already won. But you know, we gotta rub it in their faces a little bit, right? So, is there a card we would like to replay with Decoy? I mean, Slinger? I guess? That's, perhaps the one that benefits most? If we do another Mark? Cavalry, I mean, long term, that would also be decent, but given how we only have a few turns left, that's not really gonna matter. Also, clearly, you know, like I said, we've already won this, so, let's see. We'll get you back. Oh, they did draw a card, although, yeah, they may eventually get this card draw from reserves, because this timer will still go, even though they've already passed, but they won't be able to do anything, because once they pass, that is permanent. So yes, don't worry, we have won. We've definitely won. Nothing's going to change that. Right now, we're just proceeding to BM and see how much we can beat them by. Even if they draw all those reinforcements. So this is what we avoided. Yeah, and they draw cards until their hand is full. So yeah, we'll casually just beat them when we have 0 cards and they have 10 in their hand. So, huzzah! Almost 100 to 0. In fact, actually, now I didn't realize we had our leader building back. We might have had that back earlier. Beat them by 90 points.
Watch for Demavend's banners. If he's here, we must find him.
Alright, well, Nilfgaardians are down. And convincingly so, if I do say so myself.
In this song of woe. Rosberg had fallen, yes, but the Nilfgaardians, not expecting reinforcements from the south, had stationed only a small detachment to hold it. Meve led her men to victory and retook the fortress. Or rather, what was left of it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, not gonna lie, at least in terms of many of the story missions that we've had thus far, this was very easy. I mean, we definitely had a good hand, and that we happened to have the slingers, but combine that with our leader building, and as you saw, it took us 1 turn to completely shut down our opponent. So, that worked pretty well. That worked pretty well.
What they did not demolish during their assault, the Nilfgaardians burnt once inside the city. Countless charred corpses of both defenders and peasants seeking shelter from the invaders lay among the blackened ruins.
Yikes.
Some had tried to shield their children from the fire with their own bodies. To no avail.
Gods be damned!
The queen cried, pounding her fist against the wall.
Yeah, so, I mean, we saw previously that one of the cities that they had raided, they basically just got off, they tricked all of the, or they coerced all the inhabitants to support Nilfgaard, and it was somewhat peaceful. You know, yes, those people more or less betrayed their homeland, yes, but they did live, whereas this time around, Nilfgaard just took a little bit of a different approach and decided, no, you know, we're not going to try to get these people to work for us, we're just going to absolutely burn everything to ashes. And, well, perhaps that gives reason for the name.
Meve was about to give the order to move on when she caught a stifled whimper coming from a pile of rubble. Her soldiers ran to the rescue, their bare hands digging through the fiery bricks.
Here! He's alive!
The man they pulled from the ruins had suffered horrible burns.
Oof.
His face was a stew of seared flesh and pus-filled boils, and he reeked of burnt meat. Seeing Black Rayla, the poor soul staggered to his feet and lifted a shaking hand in salute.
I take it they know each other, or this person is part of the military and Rayla is a superior officer?
Engineer Lieutenant Xavier Lemons, reporting for duty.
Oh. Okay.
Medic! Send for a medic!
Rayla's expression. It's like, oh, hey, I see nothing wrong with this.
Lemons! What the devil's happened?
I know not. The East Tower. I led the defense. Heating oil to tan Nilfgaardian hides. The catapult struck. The cauldron tipped. Burst into flames. The rest, I cannot say.
Phew. I mean, clearly, as the description said, yes is, oh man, I mean, is his eyes complete, his right eye, our left side, And can you even see out of that? I can really tell.
The fortress fell.
Fell? Damned Scoia'tael.
It's Scoia'tael?
What was that?
Are you sure about that? Was that actually Scoia'tael, or do you just not realize that this has actually been Nilfgaard? I mean, it could be. We heard very early on that Scoia'tael have actually been working with Nilfgaard, so I suppose it is possible, but I certainly assumed it was Nilfgaard.
Our preparations were perfect. A month, 2 we could have lasted, but traitors were among us. Elves, dwarves.
Mm-hmm. Go on.
Planted charges on the buttresses. An explosion shook the tower. A hole gaped in the wall. Our men threw themselves in, filling the breach.
Vermin. Filthy, rotten vermin.
Huh. So it sounds like the Scoia'tael did some kind of sabotage of the defenses at Rosberg, blew a hole in the wall, and then the Lyrian, or I guess Eternian soldiers tried to, form a formation where that gap was, but of course, that is a difficult situation when you're relying so heavily on those walls for your defense, and suddenly and unexpectedly, they go boom.
I know you suffer, soldier, but Queen Meve wishes to meet with your sovereign, Demavend. We must know what's become of him.
Is he alive? We certainly hope so.
Gone, luckily. He oversaw the preparations and then returned to Aldersburg 3 days past.
Okay. So, it sounds like, at least, unless the Nilfgaardians knew that he was leaving and somehow intercepted his caravan and took matters into their own hands, then perhaps he avoided the same fate as just about everyone else here in Rosberg.
Then let us do the same. Reynard, prepare our departure.
Hold your grace. Did anyone survive? Anyone at all?
You? Pretty much just you, at least that we know of thus far. I mean, it's possible the Nilfgaardians took prisoners. They did do that with the caravan that we intercepted earlier in Edirn. As we were talking about with one of the previous cities, they basically coerced all of the residents there to assist them. So, it's something that Nilfgaard would have theoretically done. Although, given all the wreckage here, it doesn't look like they took that approach this time for whatever reason. So, I don't know. Maybe we try to stay positive here, but it's wishful thinking, for sure.
The Guardians might have taken prisoners. There's hope.
How could they? An entire detachment? An entire city? The animals.
Yeah, I mean, certainly they didn't take the entire city. There's definitely a lot of casualties, but it's possible we might be able to rescue some people if, in fact, the Nilfgaardians imprisoned some group of them.
Soldier, my medics will tend to you as best they can. Then we can escort you home if...
Yeah, is this home? Because if so, then, yeah, I don't really think there's anywhere to escort you to anymore in that case.
This is my home, your grace.
Yeah.
Rosberg.
Exactly.
I beg you, let me join your company. Let me exact revenge.
I mean, let's be honest. We can use all the help we can get.
I respect your fighting spirit, good man. But in your state...
It does look like you could use quite a bit of time in the hospital right about now.
Your grace, I can hold neither shield nor sword, but I can still fight in my own way. I'm an engineer. I build siege towers, ballistae, bridges, whatever you wish. I pray, grant me a chance.
Ooh, now that's an interesting proposition there. Yes, it probably doesn't make the most sense to have you on the front lines in your current state, but, if you're working a bit more behind the scenes, giving us some supporting, siege towers and other siege weapons and infrastructure, then perhaps that is something that could still prove useful for us.
Such pain, Such ferocity resounded in Xavier's rasping, distorted voice that Meve could not refuse his plea. Once the medics had bandaged his wounds, Meve's men set out towards Aldersburg, following Demavend and the Nilfgaardians. At one point in their journey, Black Rayla rode up next to Meve. The warrior's lips were a thin line, bitten to blood.
Okay, so we got a card for him. This card has been added to our army and can be found in the command tent. I mean, they're saying Xavier. I mean, he is a multiplayer Gwent card. I've always pronounced it Xavier. At least that's from the US. That's usually the way you would pronounce that, so I don't know. But, he is here.
Milady,
we can claim the card.
The road to Aldersburg leads through Moulderwood, where Eldain Scoia'tael prowl.
Oh.
Same filth who killed my men and delivered Rossburg to the Black Butchers.
Rayla breathed deeply to steady her furious, shaking voice.
Please, milady, I ask you upon the holies, let us find them and destroy them.
Meve gave a slight nod. It seemed the road to Aldersburg would prove long and full of challenges.
Okay. Challenge accepted. Alright, let's see. So we got a pretty sizable chunk of coins there, at least relative to what we've generally been getting here in the area. Let's take a look at our map and see if there's anything loot-wise that immediately shows up here. Interestingly enough, we initiated this conflict right at the start of the bridge, and then we got teleported to the far end when we were done with it. So, I mean, there's certainly the possibility there may be more down here in this direction, unless everything's on fire.
Were he to see what lies before our eyes, caught a whiff of the burnt bodies, perhaps he would see with whom he now consorts, whom he allowed in our home with nary a fight.
If it be your majesty's wish, I shall send a rider to the prince with her.
I wish nothing of the sort. I will not correspond with the enemy.
Ooh, her own son. How low he has fallen. In some ways, I was thinking that perhaps it would not even be able to go back here because it would be just complete rubble. All aflame. Too difficult to traverse, too dangerous to traverse. But a little bit of loot there. At least on one previous occasion, we saw there's actually a gold chest in an area where we had done one of the big battles, and only when we went back did we actually see it. So just want to make sure that we're being thorough in that sense. But if we take a look at our map here, at least initially I was looking at, are there any obvious sources of loot here that we might miss if we were to zoom full speed ahead? But if we zoom out, we'll see that, of course, we just made it to Rossburg, yes, but we have... Let's see. Our main quest takes us over here. I assume this may be the Scoia'tael hideout, because I imagine, just based on the visuals of the map here, that this city area over here is likely Aldersburg, whereas that, I mean, looks more like old ruins. So let's see. Make your way through the Moulderwood, which is also an amazing name. Let's see. Let's take a look at new reports from Eldain's commando. Fresh reports indicate elf named Eldain commands powerful force in Moulderwood. So yeah, it seems like that's where we're headed. Numbers equal or exceed your majesty's company. Extreme caution advised. Uh-oh. Yeah, sounds like we could be outnumbered and potentially outpowered as well. Eldain's background. Assimilated merchant operating in Gullet area. Okay. Radicalized after family killed in 1246 pogrom. Eyewitnesses state Eldain cannot be trusted. He honors no pact and never keeps his word. That sounds like something that is going to be very important for us to keep in the back of our mind. I can absolutely imagine a situation in which this Eldain tries to sweet-talk us, perhaps give us some kind of enticing offer that sounds good initially, if he were to keep his word, but then if we remember what information we have here, then perhaps we can recall that, well, promise may sound good, but in truth, he will probably not follow up on said promise and is likely to backstab us if we are ever to trust him. So, proceed with caution in that sense. Let's also take a look at our our camp here, because we did, of course, just get a new card, which technically, I think our deck is still exceeding our recruit limit here. Yes, so, I think we're just gonna have to flee without actually changing anything, but here is our new card, Xavier Lemons. So, let's see. 6 power, he has Zeal, which means he can use that order ability as soon as we play him, and that order is to choose a card with an order and give it 1 charge. And we can do that twice. Ooh, your engineer's got a pate like a stewed meat. But he kens his trade, that's for certain. So if we have someone with a really strong order ability, we can reset that order twice. And that's huge. I mean, that means basically tripling the power, or nearly tripling the power of some cards. And if we're looking at which cards would be the best for that, I think once upon a time, most of our powerful orders were coming from our Lyrian units, whereas post our run-in with Willem, of course our deck has changed significantly, and we have lost many of those cards, and now we're with more of a bandit type of deck, and in this case we have a lot more deploy abilities. In fact, we don't really have any orders. Wait, is it for a unit specifically? Choose a card with an order, so theoretically that does even mean we could reset the Manticore order, which does almost nothing for us. It is worth 1 point if we have Gascon. Otherwise, it is worth basically nothing to move this. So, yeah, at least at the moment, Xavier, not so helpful. Long term, or at least if we were to shuffle around our deck a little bit more and go back to having more order abilities like the Regiment Drummer, playing a Blitz unit from our deck, being able to do that multiple times means we play more cards. Wagenberg, once upon a time, was really our go-to order ability, so that certainly would be amazing, although that would still require, let's see, damage all units, enemy row by this unit's armor, then lose all armor, yeah. So, it gets the power of its order ability from building up that armor, but once we use the order ability, we lose the armor, so, if we were to try to play this order ability 3 times, we would have to continue to load up on additional units in that row to continue to load up on that armor, and that's maybe not so realistic, because, that means that, in all likelihood, playing that order 3 times rather than just playing it once means that you're probably just splitting up all the damage from that order into 3 separate turns rather than doing it all at once, which maybe it's marginally better, maybe you have slightly less overkill damage, but it's not a huge deal. So, we still... Black Rayla, play a card from your deck. If in hand, deck, or on the battlefield, strength is helped by 2 whenever a Scoia'tael unit is destroyed. That is a very fitting ability, that second part. But yeah, Black Rayla might actually be the card with the best order ability that we have right now. She's not currently in our deck because we don't have the recruit cap to fit her in, but that could be worth the switch if we were to combine it with Xavier. Yeah, and Xavier, talk about recruit caps. Costs 12. So he may now be our most expensive card. The Wagenberg actually would be, but we no longer have it unless we craft more of them. So, at least of the cards that we actually have copies of right now, he's, at least by that metric, our most powerful card. So, high potential, just not a great fit yet. With some reshuffling or additional cards that we craft, could become the best piece of our deck. But, at least for right now, we'll exit and lose changes because we, yes, are exceeding our limit. Let's take a look at the mess tent, because I imagine we may be able to chat. Oh, with both Rayla and with Xavier. Okay, why don't we start with Rayla, because of course she joined us joined us earlier. So, she's first in line in that case. Let's see, I honestly don't even remember. Did we talk to her at all in the mess tent previously? I feel like we must have, right? When she first joined us? This is probably our second time with her, I think. Let's see, yes, we've asked her about Special Forces, but yeah. Okay, we can ask about Eldain and seeing Eddern in flames. I would say maybe we finish on a high note, start with the tough stuff and finish on a high note, but then again, both these things are pretty negative, so I don't know. Let's start with Eddern, I suppose.
Rayla, how are you holding up?
not certain I understand what you mean.
It is an expression asking you how you are doing, particularly in light of the recent events that have come to pass, events that have not necessarily gone in our favor.
All Edirn is aflame. Nilfgaard's banners fly over its cities. Don't tell me you're not troubled.
Of course I'm troubled. I stationed at Rosberg for 5 years. Knew all on the crew there by name.
Yeah, that makes it particularly tough.
But that's war. That's its nature. No sense bemoaning it.
To be honest, that's probably a pretty healthy approach to it.
I see. Just know if ever you wish to talk.
Yeah, something tells me Rayla is not the kind to open up and be all vulnerable and what have you. That just doesn't really seem like her style.
I won't. But
Yeah.
I do appreciate your concern, ma'am.
With her accent, it sounded so much like she just called Meve mom. Alright, so that's Edirn. As for Eldain, it does seem like, perhaps, you know a bit more about him?
This Eldain. Could you tell me about him?
He should hang.
Oh, okay, straight to the point.
I'd hoped to hear advice that will be useful to us in battle.
Yeah, more along those lines.
First of all, you can't rightly trust the bastard. He doesn't respect our laws, doesn't share our morals.
Okay, so yes, we have heard about that from the letter we were reading previously.
The king once dispatched an envoy to Eldain, despite my advice to the contrary. Found the envoy the next day, eyes gouged out, shaft of his white flag jammed down his throat.
Oh. Yeah. So, diplomacy may not be an option. Yep, that makes sense given everything we've heard.
So, diplomacy's clearly not the wisest choice.
My thoughts exactly.
What tactics does he employ?
Like all elves, he's a worm. Avoids open confrontation, sets ambushes, attacks from the shadows, from midst the trees.
Okay, that sounds an awful lot like we're gonna get surprise battles as we're going through the forest. So we should be prepared at all times.
It'll be best to burn this whole forest to the ground, deprive him and his folk of cover, any place to hide.
I wonder if that'll actually be an option at any point in time.
Sounds rather drastic. Like tossing the babe out with the bath.
More expressions that that maybe Meve realizes that Rayla is not so keen on
Believe
on
me,
listening to.
they'd not hesitate to do the same to us. Not for a moment.
Maybe. Alright, well that's everything from Rayla then.
I must go. We'll speak later.
Alright, let's try Xavier.
Your Majesty, I've been meaning to thank you for allowing me to join your ranks.
You're welcome. I mean, it's the least we can do. Seeing what happened to your home and knowing that you can, hopefully, help us quite a bit when it comes to the more, back end of helping things run here, where, you know, you might not be fighting on the front lines, but there's certainly things you can do behind the scenes to support the group.
Certainly, Xavier. I welcome all foes of Nilfgaard to march beneath my banner.
Alright, first it was Xavier, now Xavier. I was saying Xavier would be the usual American pronunciation. Javier would be the Spanish pronunciation. How do we actually say this guy's name?
But what did the field surgeon say? Have you not resumed work too soon?
I've strength enough to wield a hammer, though my scars still burn, and fiercely so.
Yeah, I imagine.
Milady, I've seen folk turn and frown at the very sight of me. If my appearance disgusts you, I can...
Nonsense. The
I mean-
Nilfgaardians, not you, should be ashamed. You've no reason to hide, no reason to cower.
Also, what can you do? There's almost nothing. Especially when you have third-degree burns, right? It's just something that's so hard to do anything about.
Thank you, milady. It means a great deal to hear that.
Alright, let's see. Sure, tell us more about yourself.
You've long served in King Demoven's army, haven't you?
Yes, Your Grace.
Why enlist at all? What prompted you to do so?
The king needed engineers. I answered the call.
Simple enough. Doesn't seem like much of a talker. No.
Not terribly talkative, are you?
Man, Meve and I are just on the same page today.
I can build any bridge, any ballista, but to talk, hurts to talk.
Okay, now that is fair.
I see. Well, do not worry. I prefer deeds to words, in myself and others.
Alright, and that looks like all we can get out of Xavier,
Other matters
whatever
await
his
my
name is.
attention. We shall speak later.
As you wish, my lady.
Alright, and with that looks like everyone here in the mess tent. So let's head out, and we will set our sights out for the forest, and we have certainly some ground to cover here before we make our way over to Eldane's camp. And as we've heard, we could very well find ourselves running into a surprise confrontation, an ambush or two from those elves on our way over there. And notably, we have absolutely nothing on our map at the moment. Okay, I suppose we have a single point of interest all the way up there, but usually we have at least some sense of what we're dealing with here before we enter an area, and then of course once we actually get to a notice board, things start to fill out a lot more. But if we're going through the middle of the forest, then I don't know how many actual towns, villages, cities we're going to be going through. We're just taking a quick look here, and it looks like a whole bunch of trees, ruins here, maybe something there. So we'll have to keep our eyes peeled. It certainly looks like a place where one could find a hidden area or two. So we'll have to see if we can come across something like that. But with that being said, I think this will be a good place for us to wrap up here. So thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you next time.